This is a pair of semi-detached houses which are not on the 1899 OS plan. The house on the right is one I've come to look at. So I think they're early Edwardian, so let's say they're built in 1910, for example. They're conventional enough. The 200, I believe anyway, the 230mm solid brick walls. None of the walls are actually 230mm thick due to finishes internally and externally, but that's surely what they are, and it has a fairly conventional timber framed roof over the top, but enough bits and pieces to make it an interesting survey. There's the front roof slope. It's very marginally dished. I managed to pick up one broken tile, but perhaps most interestingly is that it's very mossy, so this is going to have implications with regard to how the gutters and downpipes perform. There is a surviving metal hopper between the plastic downpipes and the plastic gutters. As you can see from there, it's full of, it's got plants growing out the top of it, including what looks like a bramble, so it's obviously got some substrate to grow out of. And because of all that moss on the roof, I'm fairly sure that the downpipe will be full. And further down the downpipe, we can see leaking at a junction, and the wall behind the downpipe is going kind of green, which implies that rainwater's spilling out of the top and possibly out of that joint and saturating the wall. So this risks a damp penetration problem internally. And then right at the bottom of the downpipe we've got a piece of asbestos, which is, I don't know what it's there for, propping up the downpipe perhaps. So anyway, what we need to look out for when we go inside the house is a bit of dampness internally, specifically in that location. This is the side elevation. It is a 230mm thick, 9-inch thick if you like, solid brick wall. And if we go in a bit closer, you can see that the bricks are laid in a style known as English garden wall bond. So that is, well, if you look at Wikipedia, it says this is common in Yorkshire, but we're in Wiltshire. There you can see there are 3 courses of bricks laid long ways. Those are called stretchers, so that'll be a pair of bricks laid side by side. And these are separated by 1 course of bricks laid perpendicularly, and these are headers. And that's how you create English garden wall bond, very common around here. The walls have evidently been repointed and appear to be in generally good condition, except down at damp-proof course level, where it's a rather different story. Here you can see the damp-proof course is a brick and a half above ground level, and it also demonstrates that the damp-proof course works, doesn't it? Because the brick below damp-proof course has been saturated by water for so many, or so much time perhaps, that it's been blown to pieces by frost action, whereas the brickwork immediately above the damp-proof course is unaffected. So moisture's evidently rising as far as the damp-proof course, doing its damage, and not rising any further. Elsewhere along the foot of the wall, we can see 3 things really. Firstly, that the brickwork below the damp-proof course is generally very ragged. We can see that there have been some attempts to repair it already, and perhaps most interestingly is that there were probably once terracotta air bricks below damp-proof course level, which became so badly weathered that they've apparently clogged them all up with mortar and brickwork and fitted newer, larger vents over the top of them, which have somehow got to work telescopically to get a through flow of air through the wall and down under the floor. So I don't know why they did that, but that looks like what they've done. Does that brick look loose? It does look a little bit loose, doesn't it, that one? I think it's loose. Better put it back before the house falls down. This is the back of the house, and up there we can just about observe a little bit of damage to the corner of the chimney, which might have been because there was an aerial affixed to it once upon a time. There's a little bit of unevenness to the tile covering, and one of those tiles towards the party wall, very bottom edge, has a big crack through it, and there's looks like a tingle over towards the corner where the verge meets the eaves of the property. Yeah, it's alright, isn't it, really? Overall, it's alright. There is a painted cement render finish, which means that any moisture that does get inside the wall will struggle to get out, so as that deteriorates it will increase the risk of dampness. And down the bottom it's brought it all the way down to the damp proof course, which might suggest moisture can bypass the damp proof course, but it does seem to be cut off just above it, so that shouldn't really be a problem. But the render does look a bit blistered, doesn't it, which rather suggests there is moisture in there trying to get out, so it's as likely to get out through the inside of the wall as the outside. There's the front wall of the house, and it does have a damp proof course, and the damp proof course is a reasonable distance above the ground, so it shouldn't be damp. But this is the corner where we've got a downpipe which looks like it's leaking a little bit, so any moisture that gets into the wall is mostly going to come from above and not from below. So if I go and prod the wall down here, it says at risk, and if we go up the wall here, it seems to be happier. So is it reasonable to assume that moisture that's in the wall, even down here, is coming from above and not from below? We don't know really, but I think mostly we need to worry about blocked guttering, spilling water onto the wall. This is the flank wall, so we're in the hall, and I've probed it with the damp meter. It's fairly dry. If we tap the wall, we can feel, there for example, very dull sound, not much sound at all. We go over here a bit though, and we've got a much more hollow sounding wall, so I think plaster's coming off the wall there. And we go into the next room. Maybe you can't see it, but the wall steps out a little bit, and that's because it's been dry lined. So here the wall's about 270 millimeters thick, when we are fairly sure we're in a 230 millimeter thick solid brick house. So this is the back room. There's that dry lining, but the back wall is not dry lined, and what we've got here is a single story rear projection from the original building, and we've got a concrete floor. So we've got a timber floor here and a concrete floor here. And that's going to have gone up and over the damp proof course, so there is a risk that we'll have lateral penetrating dampness into the walls, into the floors even, where this concrete floor forms a conduit with the conduit. What am I talking about? Anyway, it's bridging the damp proof course. Moisture can bypass the damp proof course by moving up between the floor and this concrete floor here. How I explain that very well? Not very well. But anyway, what I expect to find is a bit of dampness here. And I have in fact cheated when I say expect to find, because I've already stuck a damp meter in the wall. Like a cheat. There you go. But anyway, there's dampness there, and I think that's because the damp proof course has been compromised. I've had to correct myself here. This wall is also damp. It's rendered externally, and I'm guessing that it's probably moisture building up behind the render, which is coming down from above, which is causing the dampness rather than moisture getting up from the ground. But who knows? This is the rear party wall. Now, I don't really know what builders got up to in 1905, but I think there might have been a presumption that because this is an internal wall, it doesn't need to have a damp proof course, so I suspect it doesn't have one. But that's what I suspect. I don't really know. But you see, the outside walls are nice and dry, mostly, and the internal wall, party wall, isn't. I mean, I don't know what the next door neighbour's doing. Urinating on the wall every morning? But probably not. This is the roof space, and the first problem I've got here is that there's cardboard everywhere over the top of squished down insulation, and this means I can't see where all the ceiling joists are, so I've got a problem looking around. So I shall probably just stay right where I am. The roof structure is mostly, but not quite, as you would expect. So there's the roof ridge, and all the rafters are fixed to the roof ridge with no sign of significant movement to the structure, but a couple of the rafters are twisted. There they are. Why they've twisted, I don't know. Something to do with drying out of the wood, I suppose. I don't suppose it's anything that's gone wrong with the overall structure, but they probably have been twisted for the duration, and we needn't worry about that going forward, I don't think. There is a single purlin to the front and rear, as you would expect. That's the front one, which is ever so slightly dished. And what I would have expected as normal is a strut in the middle of the purlin. Instead, what we have is a strut at the gable end of the wall, which seems a strange place to put one. There is the slight dish to the purlin. Why it's like that isn't clear. It could be, once again, that the timber has twisted during drying out. It could be a response to the superimposed loads of having all those tiles piled on top of it without the support of a middle strut. But it seems to be old and established, and I don't suppose there is any point in upgrading it now. That flimsy looking piece of timber there is not a strut. I don't know what it's doing. There's the rear purlin and the same strut just inside the gable wall. This one too, ever so slightly dished, but I think I possibly have an explanation for why that strut is there, and it would suggest it's retrospectively fitted. Looking at the gable wall looking at the gable wall, there are 4 lead patches just underneath the verge. And 3 of these coincide quite nicely with where the wall plate and the purlins will be. The one on the right hand side is a bit confusing, but my suggestion is that the purlins, for example, extended through the entire depth of the wall, and that these had decay in the end, so somebody's put lead patches over the exposed ends to keep the rain off. And then presumably those struts have gone in to provide a little bit of extra support to the purlin ends, which are probably decaying. And the same, I guess, is true of the front wall plate. The last patch seems to be in the wrong place for the wall plate, so that's a bit of a mystery. Will those lead patches be trapping moisture in the ends of the timbers and accelerating the deterioration? These are the sort of things we don't really know. The house was built too early in the 20th century to have been built with an underlay, so it was probably re-roofed perhaps in the 1960s, and we can see it's got a few holes in it. So the underlay is beginning to near the end of its serviceable life. The chimney extends into the roof space and forks into a pair of chimney breasts. These are supported on a timber A-frame, which I guess was put in place before the party wall went up to act as shuttering and support for the chimney breasts. But it might have gone in retrospectively, so if anybody knows the process, please let me know. This picture is supposed to illustrate that there has been a bit of a woodworm infestation, and I apologise for the shockingly poor quality of the filming on this occasion. Then, to summarise, a house which is in fairly good condition overall, but in need of some maintenance and repair, especially in respect of the external wall below the damp-proof course. And I never got to mention that tree in front of the house.